Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Jeana and Rachel. I'm the founder of 3PR. I love promoting healthy food brands and talking about food, but I'm equally interested in introductions and bringing people together.
And I'm Jeana Anderson Cohen. I started a company called A Sweat Life that helps adults make friends through fitness. We've been at it for about 13 years, and I'm pretty obsessed with friends. And we start every episode with a big question. And today's big question will really help us get into our very special guest. But before we reveal who the very special guest is, our big question for today is, let's talk about making friends through movements. Rachel, were you a team sports kid? And did you make friends at sports?
I am laughing about this question because I unsuccessfully played team sports. My parents signed me up with every other girl, it seemed like, in my Minnesota suburb for softball. Did you play softball?
I did not play softball. I did play co-ed softball in high school. I was bad at it.
Oh, co-ed softball?
Yes.
It is very hard for me not to turn my head to look at you, but I'm trying not to ruin the audio this time, as I did previously. We're working on our audio. So I played softball in elementary school. Not well. I was very small, not highly coordinated, didn't bring much to the team. But what I liked about team sports, despite my athletic ineptitude, was the camaraderie. I like when people cheer for each other. I like the snacks afterwards. I like the feeling of being in it together. I like that you had community through teamwork. And then I eventually found out tennis was more my sport, and I like being part of a tennis team because, again, like, you just can get a little bit of an identity boost by being affiliated with a group and feeling like you're all in it together. So even though I think there's a lot of social currency in being good at sports as a kid, and I had none of that, I did appreciate that it was a way to feel connected to other people.
Yeah, and I feel like being bad at sports. So our guest today, Sarah Spain, talks a little bit about how sports gives you an opportunity to put your skill on display. But like, if you try your very hardest and you still don't succeed, everyone can see that. And I think as a kid who's bad or not great at sports, you feel that with your whole self because you don't have necessarily the confidence yet to be like, maybe this isn't my thing. It's just like, oh no, I'm bad at, in my case, basketball.
Yes. So yeah, our special guest is our friend Sarah Spain, who we adore, and she happens to be exceptionally good at sports and was a college athlete. I would have actually thought that you would be a good sports person. Mm-hmm. You read to me as athletic. I think we found our calling in fitness classes. Yep. But I love the idea in general of women feeling successful in sports. And I have kids that are not necessarily going to go pro, but they are running track, they are doing tennis, they are doing soccer, they're doing cross country. And what I think is amazing is for kids to feel like they're gaining some competency, that you're part of something, that your teammates believe in you, that people cheer you on. I think it can even be applicable in other things. Like anything you do where you have a bit of a team vibe can help you feel connected to other people and a little less alone. So despite whether or not you have the ability, I think the idea of feeling a sense of connectedness and that people are rooting for you and they want to see you succeed is a wonderful aspect.
Well, and I think it kind of comes through in the fitness classes we maybe choose as adults too. So like I gravitate towards, so the reason why you probably think that I was an athlete is because in my adult life, I'm extremely confident.
I love about you.
I wasn't that way as a child. So like if you put a ball in my hand, like I didn't necessarily know how to like move my body through space, more so because I was not confident in my own skin as a kid. And now like as an adult, I feel extremely confident in my skin. If you tell me to try this thing and I mess it up, I'm not going to quit it forever. Like I'll try it until I'm good at it. So I give off athlete because of my confidence.
I give athlete. Yes.
But
yes.
I do like to pick up heavy weights. I do like to do athletic things, and I think the classes where I feel the most like camaraderie and connection are the fitness classes where you're doing something really hard in a group. So like an example of that is I've been taking classes at this gym called Train Moment, and twice a week they have a discipline, so they really structure their classes well towards like gaining strength together. And 2 days a week, it's TM lift, which is like heavy lifting, maxing out at like 5 to 8 reps, and you're lifting with barbells in groups of 3. So you're changing in and out the weights for your group. You're working together to make it a smooth experience. And when you're watching someone almost fail on their final rep, you're cheering for them to succeed and get through that last. And like nothing makes you feel more like an athlete than being in that moment with your little team cheering for each other.
I think that's so special. I think that no matter how old we get, it feels really good to have somebody verbally supporting you. And if you do something that feels almost out of reach and you succeed, and then someone acknowledges that feat, there's an incredible feeling that lives with you afterwards. I was trying to do a self-imposed pull-up challenge at the gym just to get a sense of could I even do pull-ups. And this woman I didn't know at all saw me struggling for the last one. She's like, you can do it. And the trainer was videotaping me so I'd have proof of this effort. And I get this huge, silly grin on my face because I felt like somebody was rooting for me and cheering me on and wanted to see me get that last one in. And that was the sensation that really lit me up. I think there's a lot of value in a feeling of team and of people wanting you to be successful. And we get that in team sports. And then in adulthood, you have to kind of find it in different ways.
Do you think that maybe in adulthood we can find it through trying something that we aren't already good at? Because I think one of the aspects of sports and team sports is learning and honing a skill. And at no point, like unless you're LeBron James in basketball, for example, I'm so sorry to have used LeBron James to my husband, Michael Jordan. If you are not one of those people who are at the top of their game, you still have somewhere to grow. You always have somewhere to grow. So I'm wondering if maybe like doing an activity that you're not already good at with a group of people would give you that sense of camaraderie. What do you think?
I think so. Whether it's athletic or not, I think anything that you start as an amateur and then you gradually build proficiency and you do it with other people can mimic that bonding mechanism of teamwork. So whether you were like, we're all going to try pickleball and we all suck at it and we're going to see how good we can get, or we're going to learn how to do stand-up comedy classes, or we're going to take art classes together. I just love the idea of moving from zero, you're at the very beginning, to, oh my God, I'm a little bit better at this thing. And I can celebrate all of our success in doing it together. I sound like such a teacher mom of like, we can do it. We can do a group project and we can get an A on it. It will turn out well. But anything I think in life where you get to see yourself put an effort, reap a reward, and you get the added benefit of that team feel, it's just good for us. I'm in a private Slack group for a bunch of PR people. We don't know each other all that well, but there's a channel called Kudos where if somebody does something really well, you can self-nominate or you can put someone else in, and then people come out of the woodwork to like clap and add emojis and say great job. And in a business where you don't always get this adulation for your work, PR's behind the scenes, it's so fun in this Kudos channel. I check it every day to see the good work people are doing and then to add my compliments to that person. So don't we all just want some kudos and teamwork feels?
What a sprinkle of sunshine too.
Yes.
Okay, do you want me to throw in some research from the book? Because the more we have this conversation, the more I'm like, wait, actually, I think sports are exactly what friendship needs.
Yes, share the research.
So, okay, so the thing that happens in friendship is our education and the end of it are often tied with where we make friends and when we stop making friends. And we make friends in school, in clubs, in sports. Because we're starting something at the very same time as a group with you. We have a leader or a coach, and you have a shared goal. And that goal might be like graduating. That goal might be like going to state. That goal might be getting a college scholarship, whatever. And those sort of stop when you reach 22 and leave college. You might just end your journey with goals, shared goals, and a leader. So maybe if you really want to make friends, you should start a class, like a pottery class, or that has a start and an end date, or like a stand-up comedy class, or like a guided sports league with a coach.
I can't believe I didn't remember this. As you're talking, I was like, you're right. I forgot that in my 20s, I was on a co-ed softball team, like those 16-inch softball teams. And again, worst player on the team, contributed nothing athletically. But it was really fun because it meant that as a 20-something in Chicago, trying to find my way and amass a group of friends and like sort of keep that college feel going in a big new place, that every week we had a practice and every week we had a game, and then we go out for drinks after the game and hang out, and everybody had their matching t-shirts, and there was just such a feeling of we're in this together, and it was so silly and so fun, and just a chance to again feel connected, feel like you had an active group of friends, feel a part of something. I did not get any better. There was no proficiency in this entire softball league, but I loved the experience, and I think that's completely aligns with your point of if you need friendship, if you're really working on relationships, do an activity together and join at the same time so that you can build collectively.
Oh my God. Okay, so speaking of sports, should we hear from Sarah Spain?
Yes, Sarah's interview was so good.
And now here we are with Sarah Spain. Today, our very special guest is Sarah Spain, longtime sports reporter and the host of the daily women's sports podcast, Good Game, on the iHeart Network and obviously everywhere you get your podcasts. Sarah is known for creating meaningful work in sports media. From the Peabody Award-winning More Than Mean to the upcoming book, Runs in the Family. Sarah also throws an excellent gathering. Sarah, thank you for being here. Actually, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for you.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me. I also use this app for my podcast, so it's very weird to be on the other side of it, being interviewed instead of being the one asking all the questions.
We'll flip it on its head, but I also feel like knowing you, you'll ask a question anyway.
Probably. Yes. I'm known for that, actually.
Yeah. So is Rachel, and so am I.
Yeah.
So, and Rachel and I, before this, Sarah, Rachel and I were chatting about how sports and movement lead to friendship. So I want to start there with you. How have sports factored into your relationships and friendships?
Oh, I can go back really far. I think in high school in particular, my best friend group were all a year older than me because I was on varsity teams as a freshman and sophomore with the older classes. And it was a real gift because even though I had some close friends in my grade, most of my best friends were a year older, or at least the sort of like group that I hung out with was a year older. And I think because I did 3 sports and band and chorus, I basically had this extremely wide array of friends across so many different spaces, and what we shared or what we did together was kind of different depending on the group. And I've carried that into later in life. You know, in college, I was a heptathlete. I did track. So I had my track friends, and then I had a whole mess of friends that weren't in sports. And so I don't know, I think sort of being used to being on a team and being surrounded by a lot of people, I've sort of just carried that over into being, I call it the social chair of my life.
Yes.
I think it works both in that sort of sorority type example, even though I wasn't in a sorority, but also in sort of like a sports context of like captain of the team. I'm always just rallying a squad of people to do various things, depending on whether that's like a concert or a costume party or a dinner or something.
I love that energy about you. You're like a really good wrangler. Yeah. You'll have an idea. You'll bring all these disparate people together. Everybody will show up, and you'll just make sure that it feels good because that's the energy that you provide. So yeah. I've loved being wrangled into a Sarah gathering. So I was also thinking about, there's so much to dive into, but I was thinking about how you have built over your career this really big, expansive, pretty insane network of people from the entertainment realm to sports. I mean, you just kind of know everybody. And I'm curious how you built this network, and then in the same way, finding that balance of give and take, because I think you're a very generous person, but everybody in their business needs to ask for favors and then in return show up and ensure that you're giving as good as you're getting. So how you built it, and then also how you find that balance.
Yeah. I mean, part of it is just I talk a lot. And, you know, my poor husband's the one who gets the brunt of it because he's around me the majority of the time. So sometimes I have to remind him that all my talking gets us into some cool after parties or meeting some interesting people or making new friends that lead to adventures. And sometimes I just have to admit, like, all right, shut up for a minute. Just like tone it down for a second. I would say, one, I'm just inherently very social. I am an extroverted extrovert. I do occasionally need to sit on the couch and stare, but for the most part, no matter what kind of mood I'm in, as long as I get put around people, all my energy comes back. I'm excited to be wherever I am talking to whoever I'm talking to. So that's really helpful because I have zero social anxiety. I will talk to a wall. And when you talk and engage with people, you create connection, right? And then you can choose to foster it, which is another big thing. When I'm traveling, I reach out to the people that I know wherever I am. And instead of relaxing, which I should probably do a little bit more, I schedule lunches and hikes and dinners and concerts. And so I keep up those relationships even with people who live across the country that I don't see as regularly. And that's something my husband and I both do. Whenever we travel, we're constantly meeting up with people that we know in the different cities that we're in. So I think keeping up connection with people. Another one I think is showing people that you care about them and that you sort of like respect and know about them. So one thing I like to do is when I introduce people to each other, I kind of like cut through the bullshit and get straight to, like, I would be like, Jeana, this is my friend Rachel. Rachel's an incredible PR person who started her own shop and focuses mainly on food-based brands, but she knows everyone in the city, and she has 2 adorable twins, and you know, you would love her. And Rachel, this is my friend Jeana, and she used to work for the Obama campaign, and she started this amazing company, A Sweat Life, and they do these cool sweat working events, and she's going to tell you every single place in the city to go work out, and she's starting this incredible new venture that I don't think she's mentioned very much in detail on the podcast, so I'm not going to do that now. But, and I would do
that was amazing. Sarah, that is your
really
gift.
Yeah.
You magic sprinkle every interaction so people get to show up with the most flattering version of themselves to a new face, and that
but also,
is
it's
generous.
like so necessary because I find sometimes like people have gotten to the end of a conversation, and especially women are not putting their bona fides out there, and you're like, oh, but you need to know this about each other, because not only will you like respect and like each other, but maybe you can work together, maybe you can help each other. And so whenever I'm out in spaces, especially like big conferences or parties where people might not get to that, I just beat them to the punch, get started with that, and then whatever they want to talk about, I'm not going to like make them network. But to me, that is a big part of keeping my connections too, is people really are like, oh my gosh, that was so nice for her to know that about me, to remember that, to have listened to what I just said, right? If I'm talking to someone at an event and I just met them and somebody else walks up, I'll be like, this is Susan, I just met her, she does blah 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 blah, and they're like, oh wow, this person was actually like listening. So I think that's part of it. How do I use it? I don't know. I'm not very intentional about it, but ever since I've been friends with you, Rachel, because you are so intentional about it, and because you communicate about your intentions around networking, and you know, we were working on that essay you were writing, which kind of gave me some insight into how you operate too. I think about it a little more now. I have to be careful because my natural way is not everyone else's natural way. And if they don't do the same things for me that I do for them, I can't be resentful of that, because that's a choice that I make, not with the intention of getting something back. It's just who I am and how I operate. And I also am naturally very suited to it. So I don't expect someone who isn't an extroverted extrovert social chair to have the same behaviors that I do around networking and supporting and hooking people up. But I do occasionally ask for a favor and hope that the person isn't offended by that.
Well, I feel like you also have, along with all of that, you have like a brain for facts. Like I've seen you in action. You hold on to information. So that has to serve you well too, because not only are you holding on to information about like who won which game when and what their stats were, you're also collecting people and stats about them, right?
Yeah, and I think also just I've always wanted to know all the things about all the stuff. I always joke that I was a heptathlete in track, which is the jack of all trades, master of none. And that sort of like sums up my life. I do radio, TV, podcasting, writing, producing. Like I don't want to just be one thing. And sometimes that's maybe a problem. Maybe I should dive deep into really just like nailing it at one thing. But I love getting to do all the stuff and learn all the stuff. And because I do that, I think it also helps with my network, because I can talk to almost anyone, right? Like there's something interesting that I'll find about them and something I'll want to talk to them about from the many different books I read and podcasts I listen to and things I'm interested in. I think if you're one note, sometimes you can get in a conversation and realize you have nothing to talk about. I don't think I've ever been in a conversation and had nothing to talk about. Like I said, I could talk to a wall.
Wait, there's two things. I was going to give you a compliment, but then this reminded me of something funny, is that we were all together on this Miraval retreat in late fall, and there was a 2-hour hike, and I really wanted to take a silent hike. And I said to you, I love you, Sarah, but let's not talk because I want to be meditative, and I want to do a not talking hike. And I think I made it 4 to 5 minutes.
Yes.
But then you were talking with our guide about your dating life, like your pre-Brad dating life, and I couldn't help myself, and I needed to jump in. And so we had a 2-hour talk as is our tendency.
Yes.
But the compliment I want to give you, so standard. The compliment I want to give you is when you said that you're an extrovert and you don't expect people to do the same thing as you when it comes to networking. I think that is so evolved and that I could learn from you. I think where I get in trouble is I want to be a generous connector and then I want everybody to do the same back as if it's all apples to apples. And my stumbling block is sometimes it's just not going to go that way. And I need to be generous for the sake of, with no expectation attached, and release the outcome. And the fact that you can do that constantly, I think is a testament to how great you are and how secure you are and how you can be a generous connector only for the sake of helping others. So that's something special about you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been working on that, especially in recent years, because I think I grew up and patted myself on the back for a lot of things that I believed to be choices. And some of them kind of are. But I actually think I just benefit from a thing I invented called mental health privilege.
MHP.
Yeah, MHP. I've never called it that, but I will now.
You can own that. That's
thank
yours.
you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, since I'm inventing things, we can also invent acronyms for them. But I do work very hard, and I have made, quote unquote, good choices. But those things stem from me not being saddled with a bunch of things from a problematic family or anxiety or depression or various mental health challenges that other people have. And so I think when I was younger, I would be like, why would anyone do fill in the blank? It felt, whatever it is that felt self-destructive or counterintuitive. And I realized a lot of it is self-soothing or otherwise an escape from things that people struggle with that I've never been handed. And so as I've gotten older, I'm trying to do better at being aware that my way is not always the best way. Just because it works for me doesn't mean that the world would be better if everyone was like me. There is such a need for people who operate completely opposite to me. And so I think just by being intentional about learning about other people's like pathologies and issues and ways of dealing with the world and life has opened me up to better understanding when I don't get out of someone what I wish I would, or when people don't reciprocate in ways that I would expect, that it's not necessarily about intent as much as it is about who they are and how they work, which I think is necessary, especially in my job, because there's so many people that I'm friends with that are putting out content all the time. And I'm always like, oh my God, read this. It's so good. Or this was such a great podcast. You guys nailed it. And I'm always posting about them. And if they've never posted my content, it'd be very easy for me to be like, well, they think I'm a moron and they don't enjoy anything that I do. Otherwise they would be doing that. And then I look and I'm like, they're not doing that for anyone. That's just not their style. But my style is to constantly be sharing and telling people, listen to this, read this, eat this. I love this. You might love it too.
You're a hype
and now
woman.
I know. Yes. And now I know that that's not everyone's vibe, and that's okay. But I don't have to get my feelings hurt if they don't hype me back.
And sometimes people just need to be asked too. You just intuitively know, like, everybody needs hype. No one's going to get mad at you for it.
Right. Well, I mean, with my book, I literally have been telling people, I have been told I need to be shameless. I have been told I need to just like ask everyone I've ever met to talk about it and post it and share it. I said I'm channeling the energy of like a 25-year-old who posts 11 pictures in the same outfit in the same place, just in a different pose every time, because that is so not my, like, especially when I was coming up in sports, like women had to literally try to be like as asexual as possible. Otherwise people would accuse you of sleeping with all the players. And so like for me, whenever I see anyone just looking hot and like thirst trapping it, I'm like, are we allowed to do that? And also like, I really miss my window. Like, when I had a banging body in my 20s, that would have been a much better time for me to be like, here's 12 pictures of me. Here's my ass. Here's the front. Here's me like leaning over. Here's me standing, sitting. Like
I still want these photos, Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I want these.
I'll
from
send you some. But yeah, I'm channeling those people that put in a full Instagram carousel, all the same outfit. I'm gonna channel them for this book.
You
It's
will
just gonna
do.
be a book jacket.
Book jacket. It's a disservice to your book and all the work you put in if you don't sell the shit out of it. It's your mandate. You have to promote this book.
I know it's hard.
And we're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Runs in the Family, available June 2nd.
By Sarah Spain.
Yes.
Wherever you get
Technically
your
June 3rd, but
June 3rd.
yeah,
Okay.
but I mean, we're
So
having
close.
a couple events in Chicago right before, so they're going to sneak
Okay.
out a couple early copies for those.
And you can pre-order. This will
Yeah.
this will run before.
Yes, you can
it's
pre-order
available.
right now. And actually, what I've been told is pre-orders are super important because they combine all the sales from your pre-order with the first week of sales. And so if you're trying to get on like bestseller lists or get noticed and reviewed because sales are up and you're not like Michael Crichton, you kind of need to have a big bunch of weeks together as opposed to just 1 week where you're selling, millions. So I keep telling everyone, yeah, pre-order, pre-order, pre-order.
For the massive listenership that we have at the Connection Code. It sounds like a great Father's Day gift
Yes.
to pre-order.
Yes, the book is about this incredible football coach who is adopted and late in his life, in his 40s, not late, I shouldn't say that since we're in our 40s. Not you, Jeana, you bitch. But
So close.
yeah.
So close.
Oh, so young. So
But
annoying.
in his early 40s. So after living a lot of his life without knowing anything about his identity and his birth parents and where he came from, the laws changed. He can get his birth certificate, and it turns out his college football coach and mentor of 30 years was his dad all along, but neither of them knew it. It's just an incredible story, but there's so much more to it than that quote unquote twist. And so, yeah, for Father's Day, it's a great gift, but I just think, like, for me, part of my intention in writing it was not just to tell one man's story, but to look at all of the things you can pull from what you can learn from adoption and mentorship versus parenthood, the choices that parents and children make. And so much of who we are is the lessons and messaging passed down that is as important as the blood and the DNA. And so how do you separate who he is from who he was raised by, and then also whose DNA he carries? And I think, there's so many people that just don't really think with very much intention about the things that were ingrained in them by their family systems. And the most obvious examples that I tend to use are things like, if your family always said, it doesn't matter how hard we work, we'll just never have enough. You are probably for life going to have that relationship with money, right? If your family, no matter the ups and downs, said, we're going through a struggle right now, but we always make it work, you're probably going to carry that messaging around money for the rest of your life, unless you decide with intention to change it. If your family was always like, we only celebrate winners in this house, you did your best, but you'll only get ice cream if you win, very different sentiment. Then as long as you do your best, we're going to be proud of you. Right?
So with nature nurture, do you have a thought now, having written this book and gone through all the research I know, well, obviously I'm a little biased with the twin situation, but what do you think for the
Twins are
nurture-nature
fascinating
divide?
for this stuff.
Yes.
So literally Harvard says it is not a matter of nature versus nurture. It is always both. And so one of the things I touch on in the book is epigenetics, which is essentially the study of how your genes are expressed as a result of the environment that you're in. So your genes are already decided. Your DNA doesn't change, but it's sort of like a dimmer switch on a light. So let's say you have the genes to probably be very tall, but you are in a really traumatic household situation, or you're undernourished, or, there's any number of factors. You're in a bad environment, literally environment in terms of like the quality of air or otherwise, right? Those can have a massive impact on how much your genes are expressed. So that gene that could go all the way to the top and make you 6'5" instead doesn't, because of whatever of those things. A lot of people, I think, really don't understand the mind-body connection. We are so convinced that our brain is like hovering above everything else that's happening. But meanwhile, what's going on in our brains is deeply connected to what's going on in our bodies, which is why there are such higher levels of a lot of diseases in people who have suffered traumatic incidents, who have gone through sexual abuse or family abuse or otherwise. It's because there's stuff stored in there. And until you work to help unlock it and let it flow and get out, you are potentially being impacted by it in ways that you can't see. And so epigenetics and the understanding of how, where you're raised, by whom you're raised, what your attachment styles are, all those things impact who you become in a lot of ways just as strongly as your genes. So it's not nature versus nurture. It is both. And twins are a really fascinating study of that because identical twins have the exact same DNA. And so they start off basically the same. And as they go out into the world, if you see vast differences in their risk taking, in their health, all of that is epigenetics. It's the way that the world is impacting their DNA.
Your girls are fraternal twins, right?
Fraternal,
Yeah.
yes. I have a theory that identical twins like each other more from the get-go, whereas I think fraternal twins have to find their way into friendship.
Right.
But I agree with you, and I agree with Harvard studies. I do think it's a continuum.
Yeah.
But in my personal experience of raising these very different fraternal twins, I think they came out. So I think the nature part was pretty dominant.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, completely.
Yes.
And, my book, the guy ends up basically creating his dad's entire life without knowing it's his dad, despite, having a very different upbringing and very different, family systems and messaging, but, ends up being so similar. And especially once they discover the connection, they realize, like, my goodness, we like talk and walk and chew a toothpick the same and like all these things. And twins are perhaps the best study of that, Rachel, because there are twins that were separated at birth. And there's these incredible studies where they come back and like weird stuff that I'm like, are we in a simulation where it's like in 1991, both of them fell down the stairs and broke their leg in different states. They
I also love these studies. Yes,
they're so fascinating. I'm like, what? Like, it's kind of like whenever I rely a lot on the whole idea of like, we only use what percentage of our brain and like, we don't even really know what we could be doing. That's how I feel when you read like twin studies. I'm like, there's something going on that we just don't know anything about yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to throw in an Instagram.
Yeah.
Have you seen those Australian twins who speak at the same time no matter what?
Yeah.
It's like, what's happening? Rachel, have you seen them?
I have not.
They're bird nurses who actually used to work with...
Done.
Yeah, they actually used to work with Steve Irwin.
Of course.
And very recently, they were witnesses to a crime. And the interview of them talking about what they saw went viral because they're literally standing next to each other in their matching bird nurse scrubs and finishing and starting each other's sentences in the weirdest. It's almost like the SNL sketch with Fred Armisen and Kristen Wiig, where they like are doing it on purpose, and you can tell they're like waiting to see what, and then pretending like it's like that but real life. And that's where I'm like, yeah, I'm out on this. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what part of their brains is just like connected, but yeah, twins.
And we said, Mom, he's got a gun.
Yeah.
I'd have to watch this. I will tell you though, going one step further. Well,
Beyond.
Kayla, so my twins, Kayla and Jeana, Kayla has a memory like you, just an exceptional repository of facts. So Shira has realized she doesn't need to store memories. She can just give them to Kayla. So Kayla has to memorize her passwords, people's name from their cabinet camp 2 summers ago.
Oh my gosh.
If she wore something recently, she just goes, Kayla, what's my login? Kayla, what was that girl with the long hair in our cabin? So I love that she's like, I don't need to put in the work. Kayla will hold the memories.
Yes. Yeah.
But I also think sometimes, even within families, you share these invisible threads. So it's not like as an adult I have that many nightmares. But a few weeks ago, I woke up at like 3:33 and I had a really bad dream. And my eyes popped open. And then a second later, I turn and Shira's standing next to me in the dark. And she goes, I just woke up. I had a really bad dream.
Oh.
And I was like, how odd that at the same time we both woke up with bad dreams and then just turned to look at each other.
Yeah.
So I think that when you talk about the subjects of your book and how they had this relationship without actually knowing they were flesh and blood related, that sometimes without realizing it, we find that tether or that connection, or there's something we feel, even if you don't know how you are related. Also, Shira has so many questions for you. I tried to explain the premise of your book over dinner, and she goes, where was the mom? Didn't she know what the dad looked like? How come they didn't figure it out? And I said, that's why we have to go to Sarah's book events.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the mom never told the dad that she got pregnant, and she never knew where her son was in the world. So how would
There you
she
go,
know?
Shira.
How would she know that they had met or knew each other? She didn't. So that's it. I mean, there's so many parts of the story that are insane. Like, so I mean, it started with my friend Skip, who played college football with Dylan, who Dylan called up a bunch of his old teammates a couple years ago, like years after they're all out of college. Hey, y'all, you're not gonna believe this, but coach was my dad. Okay, so you get that call.
Oh,
right?
it's Skip that I know was
Skip
on
that
his
you
team.
know.
Oh,
was
okay,
on his
okay.
team. That's how the story came to me. Or, for instance, he finally finds his mother. You know, he's 45 years old. She's been looking for her son for years that she gave up for adoption. And as they're talking, they realize that they lived in the same town. And then he, asks if she knows who the dad is. And she's like, well, I guess, if I tell, he's going to go look him up. And I've been keeping a secret this whole time, because I didn't want him to be plagued by the idea that he had a child out there that I never told him about. Tells him the name. And then he's like, oh, I've known him my whole life. Like, there's just so many moments where you're like, what? But also, like I said, beyond the twist of the ending, there's so much in there about understanding ourselves by looking at this person. And by the nature of his story, he was sort of forced to reconcile a lot of this stuff. Whereas a lot of us just kind of wander through life without really thinking about what are we bringing to our family and what do we want to end with us and what do we want to pass forward. Because you don't have to bring it all. You can, with intention, end cycles of trauma or end generational messaging that no longer serves you and the people who are around you. But you have to know it first. You have to know what you're bringing to the party so you can decide if you want to leave it there or not.
I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day. That is a really, really powerful thought of what do you want to not continue on in your family tradition after you've been aware enough to recognize that it's impacting you in a less than beneficial way.
Yeah.
Mental health legacy.
Yes. Yes.
What are the hang-ups?
Yeah. Wait, should I take a left turn? I don't want to make you reveal the whole book because everyone should buy it and you should be a New York Times bestselling author.
And this should be adapted, obviously, for
film.
Long-form series.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you will get credit. Obviously.
I'll see you at the Golden Globes.
I can't wait. But I do want to talk about, so I want to bring it back to friendship and dynamic duos. I know that Rachel and I both text you while we're listening to your show. I would assume. I definitely text you. My most recent time texting you was when Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird were on the pod because I was completely enamored with their dynamic. They're just so funny together. So I'd love to know, what was your take on that whole interview? Like, how fun was it for you? And two, is there anybody else out there in sports that you're like, this friendship is like very real and it lives beyond the walls of sports too?
Well, first of all, I was nervous because Sue Bird I know, but Diana Taurasi I hadn't met, and she's arguably the greatest women's basketball player of all time. And so she's also very sarcastic, and so am I. And so I was like ready to play around, but also when you've never met someone, you just want to make sure that, you get the best out of them. Because when somebody knows that they're really funny and then the interview's a dud, you're like, oh, that person's usually like so great. Why didn't you bring that out of them? Right. So I was like, how do I make the most of having this opportunity with two of the greats that most people don't hear from together as often? And so I had a blast talking to them, and I love their dynamic. And it's especially interesting in women's sports to interview people like that who were great in college at UConn, got a ton of attention and adoration, and then entered a WNBA that was pretty new, didn't get paid much money, didn't get a lot of attention, had to play in Russia in the offseason for years and years. The beloved owner of their Russian team was murdered while they were out there. I mean, they've been through a ton of wild life experiences, and then they both retire within the last year or three. And now the league is blowing up and people are making a lot more money and getting way more attention. And so it's like they built this thing that they're not really seeing the benefits of the same way. They're doing fine. They're doing well. But if they were starting their career now, it would be just a very different economic opportunity. And so it's just interesting for people to have that kind of, from the age of 20 when they met to their early 40s, and how they've changed as people and grown and worked with each other or played against each other. For me, I like one of the ones that just popped into my mind, I think because I was just watching this game, but Caitlin Clark and her teammate Aaliyah Boston. Caitlin Clark is known for being insanely competitive. Like literally they needed to bring in a sports psychologist in college and make her watch video of herself being frustrated by her teammates so that she might start to understand the impact she has on other people when they disappoint her, and she makes it clear that they've disappointed her. Because she is such a great player. She is always 10 steps ahead of everyone. And when people don't catch the pass or make the play that she has in her mind, it's overwhelming for her that it didn't work out because she's like, oh, right? So they had to teach her empathy, essentially, with her teammates. So she's got this teammate, Aaliyah Boston. She enters the WNBA. Aaliyah Boston was the number one pick before her. Now she's the number one pick. And there's this gentle moment on the bench before every game where they sit next to each other. And Caitlin says to her, "You're going to be awesome today because you are awesome. I love you."
Oh, God. I love you.
Every game. Every game.
Are Rachel and I going to cry?
I am a little emotional.
And so they just had their first preseason game back. And so they've been apart for a couple months. And Caitlin was mic'd up for it. And so she sits down. She said, "Oh, I've missed this. You're going to be awesome today because you are awesome. I love you." I was like, oh.
Yeah. That's it. I'm stealing this for my kids before they go to school. I'm going to turn around to the front seat and be like,
"You're going to be awesome."
yeah, let's go kick ass in fifth grade.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many relationships of like, I mean, Sue Bird and her fiance, Megan Rapinoe, these incredible athletes, and the way that they turn that into, you know, their work in addition to their life so that we can hear and see how they interact and how they're responding to retirement. I mean, it's endless in sports. I think there's a really special connection because of the vulnerability inherent in sports. I know Glennon Doyle has talked about this watching sports with her wife, Abby Wambach, and not being an athlete. She's like, I don't think athletes realize this, but it's like one of the few places in the world where you are earnestly trying your very best in front of people. Yeah. And if you fail and it doesn't work out, everyone knows you did your very best and it wasn't enough. And it's like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of places in life where you can just kind of coast by without ever earnestly, vulnerably putting everything out there in front of people. You know, and so in sports, you're constantly doing that and constantly losing and having to get up and try again. So I think it makes our vulnerability with each other as athletes like a little bit different than maybe for some people.
That's very Glennon Doyle.
Yeah.
Very Glennon Doyle.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to build on Jeana's question because you've been a podcast host, a kick-ass, amazing, successful podcast host for quite a long time. Thanks. And we are very new to this party. But is there an interview you've done or someone you've talked to where something they said really landed or left a permanent imprint and you still go back to it? Like, I know you've done so many interviews, but I'm curious about anything that really touched you.
I think there's too many that are like just like flying through my brain right now. So instead, I'm going to slightly change the question to like a message or an ethos that has stuck with me that's across many people. And it really was necessary for me a couple years ago when my job at ESPN changed. So the long and short of it is this exec who has since been fired didn't want to keep me around after 13 years and with like 2 weeks notice was like, "We're not going to re-sign you," and lied about talking to some of my bosses and that they weren't interested in keeping me either. That was untrue. So then they tried to create a new space for me in a different department that this guy didn't oversee because no one else wanted me to leave, just this guy. And it ended up being just part-time instead of full-time. And I'd been full-time for 13 years, podcast, radio, writing, producing, all the stuff. And so it was the first time as an adult of any kind that I had to start thinking about other jobs because ESPN's the top of the heap. So it's like you're not really looking to leave. And I am a naturally very optimistic person. I pivot to silver lining very instinctually. I don't even think about it. My brain automatically, in whatever situation I'm in, tries to figure out how to make the best of it. It's usually wonderful. Occasionally, I've been told I need to allow myself to sit in discomfort a little longer or access the parts of me that can tell people I'm sad or I need help instead of constantly trying to fix things immediately, just like move on and not think about things sucking. But I had done so many interviews for my podcast at ESPN, which was not sports necessarily. It was like my one outlet where I could just ask anyone I was interested in on. I had Saturday Night Live cast members and musicians and wine sommeliers and all these different jobs, anything I found interesting. And I had done so many interviews with people who had massive life pivots, either due to injury, right? Paralympians who had rediscovered a whole different view on life after what most people would consider this horrific change of paralysis or otherwise, and instead they saw it as when their life really began. People who were unexpectedly fired, people who lost someone close to them. And in listening to these people talk and in engaging with them and asking them questions and being curious, I realized that I had faced so little challenge in my life. And I really genuinely asked myself how I would respond to whatever they had gone through, and realized probably not very well, because I hadn't faced anything really serious. And so when this ESPN stuff came around, I really accessed the parts of me that had learned from those people how to react to a really surprising and upsetting moment or something you didn't expect, and not be to allow yourself to be afraid and sad, but also like, how do you want to be? Who do you want to be in this moment? And so I think I've still, thankfully, knock on wood, if losing my dream job is the worst thing that ever happens to me, like, I'm doing great. But I do have that in my head now of having spoken to so many people who dealt with awful things with grace, and being ready for it, not in a cynical way, but just knowing that life is going to hand you stuff you didn't plan for, and think about it in advance and how I want to handle it, instead of waiting for it to hit me like a bus and then being a bad person or reacting poorly.
And I remember when you were going through that period, and again, I felt like you embraced it with a lot of curiosity. Like, what could I do next? What's possible? We had I remember a brainstorm over coffee.
Yeah.
But now I'm just so proud of you, because think about it. You have this amazing podcast. You just won a big award for it, and you have a book coming out. So this asshole ex-ESPN person
so glad we can talk about this.
clearly was so short-sighted. And it's hard to say somebody did you a favor when your feelings were deeply hurt and it really caused you alarm and grief. But with some perspective, I do see for sure a glowing silver lining.
Yeah, I mean, I think also I try to remind myself of like those lessons that you learn and sometimes like forget immediately. And one of them for me is that I'm not great at change. I get very comfortable at what I'm doing, and then I just want people to tell me what to do, and then I'll crush it, versus having to like think about like creating something new or doing something different. But yeah, there's so many silver linings to being forced out of my comfort zone and doing something different. And then the other thing is, for this book, I brought the story to ESPN to do an E60, which is like a 20-minute feature on TV. And they said, oh, of course, this is an incredible story, blah, blah, blah. We should also definitely do a written accompaniment. And I almost told them to have one of my other colleagues write it, even though I'm a professional writer, because I hadn't done a long form story yet. I hadn't done the sort of super long deep dive, and I was worried I wouldn't do it justice. And instead I did it. I won awards for that piece, and now it's a book. And I'm like, every time I'm about to stop myself from accepting an opportunity or putting myself out there, I'm like, you've never failed yourself before. You've only held yourself short by not trying because you thought you weren't deserving or good enough, or, that imposter syndrome stuff. And I've been getting a lot of messages from successful women in the world over the last 6 months or so, I would say. They're coming in like all these different interviews where these older women are saying the number one thing they would tell their younger self is to take bigger swings, take bigger risks, that women in a lot of good ways are much more safe and secure and don't take the big risks, but ultimately we hold ourselves back. Like people that are literal billionaires now, women who are billionaires, that are talking about their massive fails and how it led to this next big thing. And I'm so afraid of failing that I just won't even try stuff that feels like it's too big. And I'm trying to get myself out of that mindset.
Would also sort of remove the permission structure too, of like working for a boss, air quotes for those of you listening, a boss. It's sort of like you're in charge of your day, your life, your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I have
Which is
bosses
scary and
still.
empowering.
Yeah, I mean, I have bosses still because my podcast is through iHeart, so I do still have corporate overlords. But it is a different vibe. Like there's literally no content oversight, which is very weird. ESPN's a Disney company. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of like the mouse overseeing everything. And iHeart is like, yeah, do whatever, say whatever you want. And so there is a lot more feeling of like ownership and control of this show than the stuff I did at ESPN, where it was part of this like very clear structure and company. But yeah, I mean, the problem with being my own boss is I am a tyrant. I am not a good boss. I allow zero time for breaks. I allow zero time. Like, what I learned during COVID is, if I don't schedule social, I will work all day. And when I couldn't be social, I did work all day, and it was very bad for me. I am going to work all the time, and sports never sleeps, and it's 24/7 thing. But also, I need to be intentional about planning breaks or social life because it's literally the only time I give myself. There's always something that can be done in sports. You can always learn some new stat or fact or read another story. Like, it literally never ends. So I need to be a better boss sometimes.
I do feel like you really lobbed us a softball to take take us right to our last question, which I appreciate greatly. And this is, Rachel and I have experienced some of your parties, but not all of them, because you have thrown some real ragers, some really thoughtful gatherings, and everything in between, from like an SNL themed party to a makeup day, to the
Fletch Navidad.
Yep. And the gathering we came to, Manna Feast.
Oh, which is the only reason this podcast exists, is because you had a Manna Feast dinner.
Yep.
Thanks, Sarah.
What inspires all of that? I think that's a pretty fearless behavior.
Yeah. Fletch Navidad is, of course, a Christmas party / birthday party for our dog Fletch, whose birthday is like late November, so it doesn't quite make sense. But I think when we first got him, we were just so obsessed that we combined the two, and then it became a tradition. Do-over day was my infuriation with all the, I was infuriated that we had missed all of the holidays to COVID. So in one day, we celebrated every holiday we missed, but each holiday had a different location and costume, and they all had to fit in your backpack. So we started with St. Patrick's Day, which was the first holiday that we missed. And it was like St. Patrick's Day in an Irish bar, 4th of July in a park, Halloween in a bar that has all these like amazing 80s things in it. So it was 80s Halloween. Thanksgiving was celebrated on the lawn outside Wrigley. We had a turkey bowl and a full catered Thanksgiving dinner. Christmas was in a bar that had kept its Christmas decorations. And then we took a bus to do New Year's Eve on a boat. Then the boat got canceled due to COVID. So we instead had it at these like tiki bars, as if we were in like, Fiji experiencing the first New Year. That was honestly, I guess, like I said, I learned during COVID, I'm kind of a control freak. And I think I was really mad that something took away my parties and my celebrations. So I was like, you can't do that. I'm just going to celebrate them on a different day at a different time. You didn't permanently steal them. We got them back. I don't know. I'm just, like I said, I'm very social. I love bringing people together. I love celebrating. I think anyone who apologizes for like having a birthday month, that's stupid. Who knows how many birthdays you're getting? The literal only other option is that you aren't around anymore. You're either turning a year older or you didn't make it. And so every time we turn a year older, it should be the most grateful celebration of all time. I love costumes. I love themes. I love planning parties. A couple years ago, I rented out a roller skating rink for a Studio 54 themed disco party, and then had this amazing after party in this like velvet filled lounge of disco balls. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to be an actress growing up, so I think part of it is inhabiting characters and getting to like dress and be somebody else. But I think the others, I just really like bringing people together. I really like introducing people to each other. I really like creating moments where everyone is together. And, I think I do have some friends who aren't good at doing that for themselves. And so it's really meaningful to them to have these. My husband's also been running for 20 straight years. He ran a trip out to Arizona for Cubs spring training. It started out with like 6 or 7 dudes, and at its peak, it had like, 70 people at a Saturday tailgate. And for a lot of those people, especially some people who sign up by themselves, who don't know anyone, who just find out that it exists and you can sign up without knowing, the people running it, it's their best weekend of the year for them. They don't have a big group of friends. They don't have people who would want to go out to Arizona and go to Cubs spring training. They don't have people who will welcome them and have drinks with them and be nice to them for no other reason than just because they're part of this like crew. And I don't know, there's a part of me that like wants everybody to feel that and have that. And so people who come to my parties and they don't know anyone, and then by the end they have all these new friends, that's awesome. Like that's like what life is about, in my opinion, is just like spending time with other people.
I think that's your gift is you're right. Not everybody is good at planning, wants to, has the creativity, has the time and energy. And you are a big time planner, like varsity planner. And it's so
PhD.
fun. Yeah, Sarah, yes, absolutely. I mean, when I heard the story of your bachelorette party, I was like, of course, that's what it was like for Sarah. But I think every friend group needs somebody like you, or people don't come together and make exceptionally cool memories. So I feel lucky to be part of your PhD party world. And I think everybody should be inspired. Like, it doesn't have to be at that scale. Like, you can plan a thoughtful brunch or a cute get together that doesn't require 7 costume changes.
Yes.
But you could aim big.
I mean, I do think, like, I hate to, be somber about it, but there's so much research now about people not getting together. It's obviously a big part of technology is a part of it, but also the loss of that, like, third space, whether that's a church, a community center. In our country, a lot of it's because of cars. You go to places in Europe and there's just city squares. And that's where you just go hang and run into people and talk to people and meet new people. We don't do that. And when I read about people, or even when I talk to friends of mine who, usually it's my work friends who we don't live in the same place, because if we lived in the same place, I would be forcing them to be social. But instead they're like, oh, I need to learn from you. I really never go out, and I don't really have any friends I hang out with regularly, and I just kind of work and then watch TV. I'm like, yeah, don't do that. Like, that's not a life. It's not Mish. Mish is doing okay, although my producer Mish and my producer Alex are both sort of indoor cats. So I gotta, but no, but I like, it makes me sad because I know it sounds corny, but like, there's so much research into what makes us happy, and because it can't be commodified and sold, people ignore it in favor of the things that they think if they buy will do it, like a spa trip or self-care items. And every research is just like, go outside and be in nature. Spend time with other people, walk a lot, and drink water. And it's like, everyone's like, that's too difficult. I'm going to instead buy 8,000 things that are going to immediately fix it. And it's like, nope, just go spend some time with people in person, get their energy, and then go out in nature and walk and drink water. Like, and so, yeah, it just makes me sad. I think when I try not to be judgy and or oppressive with my forcing onto other people my opinions about what they should do or should be doing, but it's hard for me because I'm always like, I read another story, here's more information. Like, in college, I would just, not all the time, but occasionally put an article about how bad smoking was on the door of my friends who smoked, because I was like, come on, guys, let's not do that. And so I don't know, part of it for me is like, it just brings me tremendous joy, but I also want everybody else to, like, remember that being around other people is the whole point.
Yeah. And now we know that loneliness is as detrimental to your health as smoking. So, print those articles out.
But again, like, I think people hear stuff and don't process it, because either it's the thing they've heard over and over. Yeah, exercise is, like, good for you. It's like, no, not because it makes you skinny. Like, a million things that it does for your brain and your mental health and everything else. But same goes with, like, when you hear the abstract idea of loneliness, it's harder for you to think about than the idea of, like, yeah, smoking's bad.
Yeah,
which is why I think, like,
5 good friends.
Yeah, I think the research I did for the book, like, was so eye-opening too in a lot of those ways. Like, I think everyone should have to read the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and really understand the way, psychosomatic stuff operates, the way that our bodies and brains interact with each other. I think it would change the way we educate and parent and do medicine, everything. So yeah, I mean, I think your podcast is about all the things that we can make them about, networking for business, or, the things that help us make money and succeed, but they're also just about the, like, soul, tiny little center of everything, which is just, like, being human.
Yes. I'm trying to get back into journaling more, and I was writing this journal last night and kind of reflecting on the year to come. And I was like, if I think of somebody, I wrote this to myself, when you think of someone, let them know and reach out.
Yes.
Because it's so, like, there's so many people who pop in my busy brain all day long, and I note it and then I forget. And it just takes literally a few seconds to send a text to a friend from elementary school or somebody I used to work with, or a relative that I love very much and just say, I'm thinking of you and I hope you're doing well. It doesn't have to be a conversation, which is where I think oftentimes you're like, I don't have time to have a conversation. But how much do you love getting those texts? It feels amazing. Like my friend Jacob texted me for my birthday yesterday and he's like, I've known you since I was 8 years old. How crazy is that? Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And I was like, Jacob, like,
did I miss your whole ass birthday?
Yes, you did.
I did tell
Yes,
you
you
because
did.
I felt weird. I was like,
Yes.
we were friends, and I couldn't just be like, Jeana, it's my birthday.
I missed
Hey, good job
Rachel's
connecting on that.
whole ass birthday. We recorded yesterday.
Oh
I
my
said
gosh.
nothing.
A podcast
I didn't have it in my
friendship and
calendar.
connection.
I didn't have it in my I'm
Connect the
horrified.
I
I'm horrified. I am terrible. Rachel bought me coffee today. I didn't buy Rachel coffee. I didn't bring her a gift.
Wait, no, stop it. Also, Jeana loves me so much that she's like, wait, don't microwave your coffee because there's plastic on the cup and I don't want you to microwave your plastic.
Interesting.
We're going to talk about this separately. I didn't want to be the person that's like, it's my birthday.
But you
so
should
I
be.
just...
You should be.
Because
I
guess
don't
what?
know.
People feel weirder not knowing than if you just deftly put it into conversation. I'm so glad we're recording today. I'm already having such a great day. It's my birthday. And so this person did this. And then now everyone knows and they can appropriately shower you with love.
But actually, Sarah, the funniest thing is you said connecting the dots. My dad, for my birthday, had my sister teach him how to make a voice note. And then he wrote a script and did a parody of my podcast with Jeana, and he called it Connecting the Dots.
Oh my God.
And he sent me a 90-second
That is
fake
adorable.
podcast.
That is the cutest. So
It was really cute.
I just want to say, like, to your point about texting people, two things. One, my friend Marty had this thing once that I thought was so cool where he had a little spreadsheet, and you don't have to make it so formal, but he would jot down like his best, closest friends from throughout his life. And he would write down when he last like called them. And so the next time he had a long car ride or something where he knew he was going to be free, he would just double check it and be like, oh, wow, it's been 3 years since I talked to that person on the phone. I'm going to call them. And it was just a way to like remind himself that he wanted to keep those connections if it wasn't going to be like just top of mind all the time. So I love that. And also, I am that person that no matter where I am, if I think something and it's positive, I'm going to say it. I tell strangers all the time, I love your skirt, your hair's beautiful, blah, 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 whatever it is, because how good does it feel when other people do that for you?
Yes.
And like, I think the whole point of your podcast, like, that's really what's driving me all the time is not, am I going to get it back? But if I know that people make me feel good when they make a connection, introduce me with a nice introduction, say something kind about my outfit, whatever it is, if I know that makes me feel good, then why wouldn't I just like walk around the world doing that for other people? If it's already in my mind, it's not like I leave and I'm like, I need to give 5 compliments today. It's just as soon as it's, it's probably just a lack of filter, but as soon as it's in there, I'm like, pass it on.
Yeah. Wait, Rachel, should we finish by giving Sarah 1 compliment each?
Yes.
You want me to go first or second?
You go first because I'm debating between 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Everything I know about sports is because of you. and I mean that in actually like, more than you're the only sports podcast I listen to. But before I met you, I felt like sports wasn't a place where I was welcome as a woman. And you welcomed me in and created a space where I felt empowered.
I love that. I love that.
Sarah, this is hard because I have a lot of compliments, but I think, so sometimes people will be like, oh, how do you know Sarah, or how did you become friends? And I think it was Lynn Bredfeld, who introduced us years ago. Yeah. But I think my compliment is that you could have very easily chosen not to be my friend because I don't know anything about sports. It's not a passion area, and I'm pretty far removed from your day-to-day. But despite that, you're like, I like Rachel enough, and we have found other common ground. Yes. And I feel like you're the kind of person that if you're into somebody, you show up, and you will always have the invites, and we'll go on these fun double dates, and you've gotten to know my kids, and you're just like a really loyal, wonderful, steady presence.
Thank you.
And I so appreciate that even though I don't make sense on paper, that you have held on to this friendship with me for many, many years.
You don't have to make sense on paper. I contain multitudes. I'm not just sports lady, which is what I mentioned earlier about the heptathlon thing. Jack of all trades, master of none. Like I really try not to be
the master of none.
A one-note sports person because I like music and movies and theater and everything else.
And we like comedy. We share a passion for stand-up comedy.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Well, Sarah, tell everybody where to get everything you're doing now.
Oh boy. Okay, yeah. So my daily women's sports podcast is on iHeart, but you can get it wherever you get podcasts. It's called Good Game with Sarah Spain. As far as we know, it is the only daily women's sports show of any kind that exists. So we're just trying to keep changing the market and getting more coverage out there and just have great fun stories and news and interviews and everything else. My book, Runs in the Family, is available for pre-order, both the book and the audiobook. So if you would like to hear me read it instead of reading it yourself, that's available. Actually, Brad, my husband, kindly made an easy to share website, which is just tinyurl.com/RITF book. Runs in the family book. tinyurl.com/RITF book. But also, if you follow me on any social, I'm putting links everywhere because I'm doing the shameless plugging things. So at Spain2323 on Instagram, at Sarah Spain on X, at sarahspain.com on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, all the places. I'm easy to find. sarahspain.com is my website.
You're so good at being all over the internet.
I really
I'm like,
am.
I'm like, I know what Blue Sky is, but I've also never gone on it. So good for you, Sarah.
Blue Sky is like Twitter without Nazis and not supporting a Nazi.
And that's our takeaway.
People I don't make connections for. Nazis.
Oh, we love you. Thank you for doing this, and thank you for introducing us.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed listening to the pod. It's so fun to hear you two talk about things you're so good at.
Oh,
we appreciate you.
Thank you.
Our interview with Sarah was so wonderful. I am always in awe of how articulate Sarah is, how much information she can hold in her brain, how much energy one person can have, and just all the ways she is making her mark. She's incredible.
A real encyclopedic knowledge of much more than sports, the brain, how things work in general. Like, we loved talking to Sarah.
If you were going to do a trivia night and you could invite one person, it would be foolish not to invite Sarah.
A jack of all trades.
Yes.
Well, now it's time for Show and Tell, where we bring something we've discovered, or maybe we're keeping in our brain like Sarah, discovered in the connection space that we think the other will enjoy. Rachel, what did you bring to Show and Tell today?
I was thinking about this, and actually our little neighborhood walk recently kind of inspired it. I was thinking about at a time when, and this will come up repeatedly, we're at societally peak loneliness, that one thing that you can do that feels so good is to become a regular. And so in my little pocket of my neighborhood, and I literally mean behind my house on the corner and down the street, there is an incredible bookstore called 3 Avenues Bookshop. There's a coffee shop called Heritage, and there's a restaurant called Dear Margaret. And I have made myself a regular, which means I go with frequency. I introduce myself to people that work there. I try to check in. I run into them on the street. I bring people for meetings or special events. I try to support these businesses. And in turn, I get the benefit of feeling valued and feeling like we have a real connection. And so Jeana and I happened to be doing a neighborhood loop, and we ran into the owner of the bookstore, and we were chatting it up at Heritage, and then we ran into the owner of Dear Margaret, and it just happened to be a day where everybody was out and about. But the best way to me to combat loneliness is to create community right where you live, where there's proximity. And so I, even yesterday, went into the bookshop with my daughter Kayla, said hi to Tim, the owner. We spent a half an hour just looking at books and reading and browsing around. And I just felt like this is another place that I can go and feel welcomed and feel at home. Even though it's a place of business, I'm a regular. So I just want people to think about what's something near you that you can make into your spot. Is it a coffee shop or a bar or a clothing store, any kind of retailer? Just introduce yourself to whoever's working there, share names, go with frequency, and build a relationship. And it's like cheers.
I love
Everybody knows your name.
I love that. So for the research for this book, I've talked to people, and like the most social people have been folks who have a place like that. There was a woman who lives in Boulder who was saying like she lives close to this brewery, and the people just pop in. Like, they don't make a plan. You just know you're going to have friends there.
Oh, this is your show and tell now.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Well, I'll do my show and tell,
okay.
but I'm relating to yours.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
And then I also spoke to someone who lives in, I believe, Asheville, and she was saying that there's like a sauna that she just goes to, and there are people who are always there, always ready to connect, like just delightful. So yes, like find yourself a third place.
Yes, and even gym friends. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm somebody who's there all the time, but if you go to the same classes, you start to see the same faces. And then I have this subcategory in my mind of people I call gym friends.
Yeah. Love a gym friend. Are you ready for my show and tell?
I would love your show and tell.
Okay, so this is also related to a different neighborhood walk we did, but I want to talk about casual friendship. I recently read an article in The Guardian that was called "I Fear I'm Doing Friendship Wrong," and it was an essay that was arguing for like the casual hang, the sort of like hangouts of our youth, where you would just pop over to someone's house and just do whatever you were doing together. And I feel like I feel like we lose that in adulthood, but I've also heard that we lose that in adulthood from a lot of other people, including this author. So she said in the piece, as a mature 21st century adult, nearly everything has to be scheduled in advance. We meet when we're composed. If we're not feeling up to it, we cancel. No one knocks on anyone's doors spontaneously anymore. That would be crazy, insane even. We no longer play or fool around. We don't hang out for hours without a plan. And
this is so true. And what would you do if somebody just knocked on your door and said, "Do you want to hang out?"
I would hide. Well, now I think with the knowledge that like a casual hangout is accepting who you are at that moment and what your space looks like and inviting someone into it, like I would invite that person in for a casual hangout. But if you'd asked me maybe 2 months ago what I would do if someone knocked on my door randomly when my house was a mess and I was just like lounging, I would tell you I would ask them to meet me in a different space. Like, let me get ready and let's go out. But like, no, I think there is like a beautiful merit to hanging out when you're not ready, when things aren't perfect.
I think this is such a powerful and true topic because in college, that was a time of life where you literally could just knock on anyone's door and the hangout was instantaneous and seamless. And I'm even trying to think in 20s, probably you could be like, "Hey, I'm by you." And first of all, in our 20s, or since I'm elder, you'd call somebody. You didn't even text. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm by you. Do you want to hang out? Can I come over?" But there was a point where something shifted, like this invisible threshold where you only made plans and people had to show up ready for your presence. And it would have felt jarring and kind of unwelcome if there was an expectation that they were going to suddenly be in your space and you weren't prepared for it, which is too bad. And actually, I remember, I think it was 1 or 2 summers ago, we're walking in our neighborhood and my daughter Shira was really mad. And she's like, "I just can't go outside and knock on anybody's door to play with them. And I want to do that." And I was like, yeah, that does suck. Because as a kid, if you wanted to play, you could go out and find somebody to play with. But in our city life and with the way everybody functions, I couldn't be like, "Hey, Shira, just like run down the street and see if so free to play with you." Like, I would have to message a mom and say, "Is your daughter free?" And, "Oh, no, she's at dance class." "Okay, how about tomorrow?" "Oh, tomorrow's not good. There's a birthday party." "Okay, why don't in 2 weeks we get the girls together from 2 to 3:30? Like, that's sort of the way friendship looks now. And I bet it's the same in many ways for you with girls' nights and what's not. But we did a casual hang.
Yes, we did.
And that was successful.
We did a casual hang, but we scheduled the casual hang.
That's true.
But I mean, but that part, I think that part of life you can't really remove. Like, we are overscheduled city people. And for now, that's the truth of it. We have obligations. So I think if you want to integrate a casual hang into your life, like, make it easy. Like, ask someone to come over or invite yourself to their place. And just say, like, we don't have to have a plan. We can either just hang out and order food or watch a movie. Like, so then you're still fitting into the calendar and not, air quotes, imposing yourself on someone, but you get the casual nature of it that we really are all missing.
My ideal casual hang with you, which happened, was you came over, which was so nice. We had workout clothes on, no makeup, grabbed umbrellas because it was drizzly, went for a walk, got coffee, got lunch, shopped a little bit, got lost because I'm so bad at directions, and turned back around. And it was just easy, breezy, fun, no expectations, hangout time.
We met a couple people.
It
was a delightful, it was a Sunday. It was a delightful Sunday.
It was a spontaneous and surprising Sunday, whereas so many of mine are not. And that's why I think you are really brilliant for bringing up the casual hang, because I think it creates space and room for spontaneous encounters and new memories and not doing things that are so formulaic, which maybe that's my gripe, that a lot of friendship feels very formulaic. Let's meet for dinner between 6:30 and 7:30 p.m. We'll be together for an hour and a half to 2 hours. We'll cover off on these topics. We'll have 1 or 2 glasses of wine, and then we'll head home at this time. And not that I don't enjoy those, I do. They're very special. But how great when you can say, let's just meet up and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Or like, have you started this show? Let's start it together.
Shocked. Like, that's a whole new idea. Do you want to start a show together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's start this show together.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would love to challenge anybody out there to just like invite a friend to have a casual hang. Set the time, put it in your calendar, but like have a casual hang.
Even my friend Kirby did some errands with me, and I was like, oh, my Target run is so much more fun because you're in the car with me. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. Okay, should we have a quick connection conversation?
We should.
Today's connection conversation all started out, I'm just going to plug Sweat Working Week, which is through A Sweat Life. It is a week like Restaurant Week for Fitness, June 1st through the 7th. Find out more at sweatworkingweek.com. I just want to thank the gym and studio partners who are welcoming newcomers into their gyms and studios. They've also opted into helping people make friends. So we're excited to see friendships form in those spaces in Chicago.
Excited for you. And I'm going to add, inspired by this conversation with Sarah, that if somebody in your life is doing something that they're really excited about and you're proud of them, use your platform to elevate them. I think we can all hype our friends and their projects. And I definitely have had the thought like, oh, I don't have a big Instagram following. So like, what's the point of putting it on my Instagram? But I don't think it's about how many people are paying attention to your account. It's the generosity of the gesture. So if somebody has a book coming out or they launched a podcast or they got a promotion or it's a special occasion, I think there's so many ways that you can find a space to celebrate them and acknowledge that win. And it's a really beautiful gesture as a friend to do so.
Oh, I love that. Well, this has been another episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, and work, and really everything in between. People. This is a production by two friends, Rachel Gilman-Rishel and Jeana Anderson Cohen. You can follow us on Instagram using our full names. We both love 2 last names. On LinkedIn, using the same Rachel Gilman-Rishel and Jeana Anderson Cohen. So we got that. I fucked up this whole outro. Ben, I'm going to start it over. I started with a stumble. And I was like, I can recover, and I just never
That's
did.
okay. That's okay.
Just never
And
did.
I just all of a sudden yelled, people! Okay.
I was laughing at those bird ladies for like 10 minutes when Sarah was on.
That was really funny. Okay. Maybe we don't even need the 2 last names. Maybe we just zip.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
do it.
Okay.
Who the fuck cares about our last names?
Yeah.
We don't care.
Not us.
This has been another episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connection, work, everything in between. This is also a podcast by 2 friends, Rachel Gilman-Rishel and Jeana Anderson Cohen. You can find us on Instagram and on LinkedIn using our full names, Rachel Gilman-Rishel and Jeana Anderson Cohen. And hey, if you have a line to our dream connections like Gail King, like Kelly Girardi, or if you just want to ask us a question, please shoot us a DM or send us a message on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you.
Bye.
Goodbye.